Cryptids, creatures claimed to exist but never proven, have long been linked to unexplained deaths. When the Silver Bridge collapsed in Point Pleasant, West Virginia in 1967, killing 46 people, many blamed the Mothman, a mysterious flying beast with glowing red eyes. In 1959, 9 Russian hikers mysteriously died in the Ural Mountains in what has become known as the Dilatov Pass incident. Some cryptozoologists have suggested that a Yeti attack could explain the brutal injuries inflicted on the victims, including a skull fracture, missing eyes, and a twisted neck. And the Popelic monster, a half-man, half-goat creature that haunts a high railroad bridge in Kentucky, has been blamed for luring dozens of victims to their deaths. But of all the cryptids linked to tragedy, none have a death toll higher than the Beast of Gévaudan, a deadly monster that terrorized rural France between 1764 and 1767, killing as many as 200 people. Now, we often receive very sweet comments about my age and encouraging me to look after my health. I'm not sure quite how old you think I am. And while it's something I won't reveal here, I will say I've reached the point where taking care of my health is very important to me. Sometimes, however, that can be easier said than done, especially if I need to book an appointment to see a doctor. If you're able to beat the final boss, that is the GP's receptionist, and actually get an appointment, chances are it will be weeks into the future, and by then your condition could have gotten worse, or you'll be put off altogether and end up not going. We'd all probably visit doctors more often if it was just a bit more convenient, and that's where this episode's sponsor, ZocDoc, comes to the rescue. ZocDoc is a free website and app that makes booking a healthcare appointment far less of a hassle. With it, you can find, compare, and book high-quality in-network doctors. You can search through more than 150,000 providers across all 50 states. And it's not just one kind of appointment. Whether you're looking for primary care, dentistry, dermatology, eye care, or any of the 200-plus specialities, you can search by area of expertise or even by symptom. You can choose in-person visits or video visits, check out verified patient reviews, and then see real-time availability. Booking in just a few clicks, no phone calls required. And appointments through ZocDoc happen fast, typically within 24 to 72 hours, and you can even find same-day options. So, if you've been putting off seeing a professional about that strange rash or any other condition, head to ZocDoc.com/wellinever or click the link in the description to find and instantly book a top-rated in-network doctor today. The beast's reign of terror began in early June 1764, when a young peasant woman caring for her cattle spotted a creature tearing out of the forest, running straight at her. Later, the woman described this beast as being the size of a calf with an unusually broad chest, a huge mouth full of canine teeth and fiery eyes. The creature had a shaggy red mane with a dark stripe running down its spine. The peasant woman was saved from certain death by the herd's bulls, who rushed at the beast, scaring it back into the forest. Less than a month later, the beast claimed its first victim, a 14-year-old shepherd girl named Jean Boulet, whose mutilated body was found outside the village of Saint-Étienne-de-Loudun. For the next 3 years, the beast maimed, killed, and ate hundreds of people in rural southern France, sparking an international uproar. The beast's hunting grounds of Gévaudan is now known as Luzère, the least populated department in France. It's an isolated, rugged land of mountains, craggy volcanic rocks, and dense forests. The weather is notoriously miserable, with cold, long winters and wet summers. One pikeman dispatched from Normandy to hunt the beast wrote to his patron, I beg you, sir, if you have not already left for the Gévaudan yourself, forget about it. This is an abominable country with terrible food. There is little arable land in the area, and most locals survived by raising cattle. Hundreds died each year of malnutrition or starvation, and hundreds more suffered from ricket and scrofula. The villages were impoverished. The peasants who eked out a living in this desolate landscape had more than enough to worry about long before a mysterious beast began ripping their loved ones apart. Until the 19th century, France was home to one of Europe's largest Eurasian wolf populations, as many as 20,000. In most rural areas, including Gévaudan, wolf attacks were a well-known public hazard. Parish registers recorded brutal attacks in plain language, like this one from the La Chapelle-Tecle in Saône-et-Loire in 1749. Marie, aged approximately 7 years, daughter of Jacques Prudent and his first wife, Tianette Maroyer, was snatched from her doorway by a wolf and devoured in a field. Only her head, one arm, and her stomach were found, and nothing besides. These pitiful remains were buried in the cemetery of this church the following day, 5th of October, before my entire parish, who had gathered for the Sunday Mass. The population of wolves and the danger they presented gave rise to folk tales like Little Red Riding Hood, and saw the peak of early modern belief in the werewolf or loup-garou. While all wolves posed a potential threat to humans, particularly lone children, none were more terrifying than a rabid wolf. Predatory wolves select their human victims like any other prey, looking for individuals they can easily overpower. But rabid wolves, ravaged by illness, strike indiscriminately, attacking any living being they encounter. A single rabid wolf can attack multiple victims in a single day and travel long distances undeterred by territory or fear. In January 1764, a single rabid wolf killed 43 victims before it was hunted down. But the Beast of Gévaudan was unlike anything the peasants of rural France had encountered before. By the end of 1764, there had been at least 29 more attacks that killed 21 and injured another 5. In August, a 15-year-old girl and a 16-year-old boy died within days of each other from similar attacks whilst working in fields. In September, a young shepherd boy disappeared near the village of Laval. His partially eaten remains were found in the hills. Days later, a 36-year-old woman was killed on her doorstep. Survivors described the beast as much larger than a wolf, with red or grey fur, a stripe down its back, and massive razor-sharp teeth and claws. In October, hours after another mauling, the beast was seen at Château de la Baume, stalking a herdsman. A group of hunters followed the animal in the estate's woods and chased it into a clearing. The hunters struck the beast with a volley of musket fire, but after a brief fall, the beast rose to its feet and fled. That autumn, the Courrier d'Avignon began publishing sensationalized stories of the attacks. As news of the spate of attacks spread, outsiders blamed the rural peasants, arguing that the assaults were a result of their Protestant faith. In their view, the people of Gévaudan were being punished for harbouring ill will toward the Catholic Church and the monarchy. One bishop even claimed that the beast was a manifestation of the wrath of God. Skeptics believed that primitive superstition had worked the peasants into a fervour, preventing them from seeing run-of-the-mill wolf attacks as anything but the work of a monster. Accounts of the attacks, however, are particularly savage. Human remains were often found badly mutilated, decapitated, or ripped to shreds. The beast attacked not just with its teeth, but with its claws, and its victims were primarily young women and children, compounding the villagers' grief. Despite many attempts to hunt the beast, locals were unable to kill it, and the attacks continued. In January 1765, 12-year-old Jacques Pottefe came face to face with the beast while in a meadow with his herd of cattle and a group of other children. When the beast charged, Jacques directed his friends to stand their ground and raise their sharpened sticks. The children managed to scare the beast away, and Jacques' heroic efforts were rewarded by King Louis XV, who paid the boy 300 livres and promised to fund his education. The same month, the Courrier ran an article claiming that the attacks were from a ferocious beast of unknown type, coming from who knows where, who drank the victims' blood and ate their flesh, all while hunting parties had been foiled by the beast's agility and cunning. In another article, the paper claimed that bullets were unable to penetrate the beast's skin. Days later, the paper printed that the creature could leap incredible distances and vanish and reappear at will. As the Courrier's sensational reports were picked up by national outlets, the king was ridiculed for his failure to protect his own people. How embarrassing it was, the people said, that the beast had been driven back by a young boy with a stick, while the king's armoured troops and royal hunters milled about in Versailles. In response to the criticism, King Louis charged a dragoon captain named Jean-Baptiste Duhamel with tracking and killing the beast. Duhamel was a zealous hunter, but his strategies, like asking parents of recent attack victims to allow their children's remains to be unburied, to serve as a lure, and eventually using living children as bait, were unpopular with the locals, to say the least, and ultimately unsuccessful. A 4-day hunt involving 20,000 troops and volunteers failed to yield results. To save his honour, Duhamel began repeating claims that the beast had supernatural powers. He wrote that the beast had a breast as wide as a horse, a body as long as a leopard's, and fur that was red with a black stripe. He concluded, "You will undoubtedly think, like I do, that this is a monster, the father of which is a lion. What its mother was remains to be seen." In mid-February, Louis XV dispatched 2 professional wolf hunters from Normandy to replace Duhamel. Jean-Charles Donneval and his son, Jean-François, brought with them 8 bloodhounds trained for wolf hunting to scour the 2,000 square kilometres of Gévaudan. A day after the Donnevals' arrival, a carriage travelling in a remote area was attacked. Reports of the attack described a beast that stood on its hind legs, had a mouthful of foam, and used its tail to hit a footman in the face before jumping through the carriage, shattering its windows, and escaping into the woods. The beast was said to have such a foul odour that the carriage had to be burned and its ashes buried. Following the carriage attack, the king offered a reward of 6,000 livres to the person who slew the animal. Combined with rewards from other local authorities, the total prize for bringing down the Beast of Gévaudan was now over 10,000 livres. After 3 months, the Donnevals had failed to shoot a single wolf. By then, the story of the Gévaudan attacks had reached an international audience. The locals, who had devoted countless hours to hunting the beast, were demoralized as the list of victims continued to grow. Parisians were tired of the sensational claims from a primitive region taking up valuable inches in their newspapers, and the king was being mocked in London tabloids for his inability to capture the culprit. Fed up with the criticism, in June 1765, Louis decided to send his personal gun-bearer and lieutenant of the hunt, François Antoine, to Gévaudan to slay the mysterious brute. Marie-Jeanne Vallée, a servant of a parish priest, was crossing the river Dège with her sister when the beast appeared. When the animal lunged at her, Marie-Jeanne managed to thrust a spear into its chest. The beast dropped to the water below, but quickly recovered and fled into the woods. When Antoine heard of the attack, he rushed to the scene and discovered the girl's spear was indeed covered in blood, but he failed to track the beast. Marie-Jeanne's bravery earned national acclaim, and she was nicknamed the Maid of Gévaudan. Even today, a statue of the girl stands in her honour in Uvre, France. At the end of September, Antoine finally succeeded in killing a massive grey wolf. He wrote, "We declare by the present report signed from our hand, we never saw a big wolf that could be compared to this one. Hence, we believe this could be the fearsome beast that caused so much damage." Antoine arranged for his son to have the beast stuffed and taken to Versailles, where it was exhibited in the Queen's antechamber. Then he hunted down the beast's pack and slayed them all to ensure none of its offspring would continue the reign of terror in future years. When he returned to Paris in early November, Antoine was heralded as a hero and granted the 10,000 livres reward. For a while, it seemed that the Beast of Gévaudan had finally been destroyed. But on December the 2nd, 2 boys were attacked by an enormous wolf-like creature. Before the end of the year, a dozen more attacks had been reported. According to an account published by the Parisian Illustrated Review, the beast's behaviour seemed to have changed. Before, the creature had been scared by cattle and often avoided hunting near herds. Now it showed no fear. Had the beast evolved into a more terrifying monster, or was this a different creature from the one before? Either way, the royal court showed no sympathy. As far as the king was concerned, the Beast of Gévaudan had been slain by François Antoine, and any further attacks were certainly just the work of normal predatory wolves. Left to their own devices, the people of Gévaudan launched their own mass hunting parties, using poison, traps and dogs to try to take down the beast. By the spring of 1766, the attacks had grown more sporadic, and weeks would pass with no new deaths, luring the locals into a sense of false security before suddenly restarting with ferocious vigour. A sudden outbreak of attacks in 1767 prompted a local nobleman, the Marquis d'Autopsy, to organise another hunt. On June the 17th, the beast killed 19-year-old Jean Bastide in the village of Les Biniers. Just as the men were beginning to think the nightmare would never end, a local hunter named Jean Chastel shot a wolf on the slopes of Montmouchy. The creature was said to weigh over 100 pounds, with an enormous head and membranes that extended over its eyes. The beast's body was brought to the chateau of the Marquis, where a surgeon named Dr. Boulanger conducted an autopsy. The remains were consistent with those of a large wolf or wolf dog, but the carcass was incomplete when it reached Boulanger. He noted that the beast had powerful jaws with sharp teeth, coarse reddish-brown fur, and yellow eyes. The animal's stomach was found to contain remains matching the description of Jean Bastide. When Boulanger was finished with his work, the beast was exhibited at the chateau for about 12 days to massive crowds. In August, Jean Chastel accompanied the beast to Versailles, expecting a lavish celebration like François Antoine had enjoyed. Instead, he was quickly dismissed, and the beast was ordered to be buried without fanfare. Jean Chastel's hunt ended the 3-year killing spree, but no one could agree on how many creatures were responsible for the attacks or what exactly the Beast of Gévaudan was. Many believed the area had been plagued by an influx of wolves, and the attacks were perpetrated by both predatory and rabid wolves. Because the response to the attacks had been so intense, it was reported that as many as 2,000 wolves were slaughtered during the hunt for the beast. Perhaps this culling of the population had been the solution to the rampage rather than the killing of a single big bad wolf. Modern scholars have suggested that as many as half a dozen killed wolves were presented as the beast during the frantic hunt, and a certain amount of trickery, including pushing bits of bone and clothing into the wolves' stomachs with a long stick after death, was employed. Those who believe the attacks of the Beast of Gévaudan were committed by a single creature remain divided about the species of the animal. Some have suggested that the wolf may have been a non-native variety, possibly an Italian or Apennine wolf. This subspecies is known for its grey pelt, which reddens in the summer with dark bands along the back. Italian wolves are known to have migrated to France in the early 1990s, but is it possible one or more crossed the mountains to France in the mid-18th century? It's also been theorized that the creature responsible for most attacks was simply a huge Eurasian wolf. Also known as the common wolf or the Old World grey wolf, this subspecies can vary significantly in size. On average, Eurasian wolves weigh 39 kilos or 86 pounds, but the largest specimens can weigh up to 79 kilos or 174 pounds. If the beast was anywhere near this size, it would have appeared to be at least twice as large as the wolves most locals were familiar with. To the local peasants, weak with malnutrition and disease, a large grey wolf may have seemed an impossibly enormous and fast foe. There have also been suggestions that the beast may not have been a wolf at all, but a hyena. Certainly hyenas fit many of the characteristics ascribed to the Beast of Gévaudan. They are wolf-like in build, but with larger skulls. Their pelts are coarse with a ridge of longer mane-like hair along their spine. They have powerful jaws and can kill prey with a single bite to the neck. Hyenas often dismember their kill and are known to be more aggressive than wolves. It's been proposed that a hyena may have escaped from a private zoo and ravaged the countryside in search of food. But the descriptions given by survivors most closely match those of the striped hyena subspecies, which are primarily scavengers and rarely attack humans. Karl-Hans Torke, a biologist and author of the Gévaudan tragedy, The Disastrous Campaign of a Deported Beast, has argued strongly for another possibility. Torke believes that the Beast of Gévaudan was an escaped exotic animal, but not a hyena. He thinks the beast was an immature male lion. Not only does a young male lion match many of the descriptions given of the beast, but several specific details given by survivors that were dismissed as sensationalism: a tasseled tail, strength enough to carry a victim away with ease, and standing on back legs to attack with the claws also point to it being a lion. While lions were a well-known species, most people, particularly rural peasants, had only seen illustrations of lions as fully developed males with massive manes. Therefore, it would be unsurprising that none of the witnesses described the beast as being lion-like. Instead, they repeatedly said the beast was like a wolf, but different, unable to accurately describe exactly what made it non-canine. Torke believes that's because France has no native big cats. Therefore, there was no frame of reference for a large feline creature. If the beast were a lion, it would also explain some of the supernatural characteristics ascribed to it. The ability to leap large distances, the skin seemingly impenetrable to musket balls, and the fiercely strong jaws capable of crushing a victim's skull with a single bite. Displaying exotic animals like lions had become fashionable among the nobility in France, and King Louis himself had been gifted a lion cub as a child for his royal menagerie. According to historians, Louis XV neglected and ultimately abandoned his menagerie, so that by the time his successor took over, the animals were living almost freely in ruined buildings. If a lion did escape from a royal or nobleman's private collection, no one would be eager to admit it, especially when hundreds of peasants started dying in brutal attacks. The Beast of Gévaudan cemented the French view that the wolf was a danger that must be eradicated. Wolf hunting was not only permitted, but encouraged. As many as 6,000 wolves were killed each year until they had disappeared entirely by the 1930s. Migrating wolves from other areas have slowly repopulated France, and today there are more than 1,000 wolves in the country. While conservationists celebrate, farmers have responded with anger, arguing for reduced protections for wolves. Even though wolf sightings are rare and rabies has been officially eradicated, farmers worry about the danger wolves pose. The fear of wolves seems to be embedded in the collective memory of rural France, tied to a time when the Beast of Gévaudan haunted the fields and forests, killing indiscriminately and savagely. Whether the beast was a wolf, hyena, lion, or some other creature matters little, for the terror it inflicted is nameless and immortal. Thank you for watching. Right then. Take care, and I'll see you next time with another story to make you say, well, I never.